right, now welcome in Ohio State head coach Chris Holtman. And Chris, how you doing?
Good, Jeff. Good to be with you, man.
Likewise. I know you feel good about this team. I was out there earlier this year, and certainly, listen, it's a team. You lose Dwayne Washington. A lot of people feel like that took you from maybe a potential top 5 or 10 team in the preseason to now a team that's in the top 20, 25. I'm going to give you one thing. Archie Miller told me he's picking you guys #1 in the Big Ten this year.
Oh, geez.
You like that, don't you?
I love Archie for one. Boy, I think he left a really good Indiana team there. I think I'm really high on this Indiana team as well. I did not know that Archie hit me up yesterday. I think the biggest thing for us is the backcourt, answering that backcourt question, because it's not just Dwayne. CJ Walker was a really stable force for us last year when we won 9 of 10. He played well. Dwayne played really well. We do have some veteran guys back, Jeff, but our backcourt's going to be almost brand new.
Right.
New point guard, whether that's going to be Jamari Wheeler or whoever, and then some young guys that kind of fill in that combo or 2-guard spot.
All right, so you gave me kind of a vague answer in the point guard spot. I'm gonna ask you to be a little more specific if you can. You mentioned Wheeler, the transfer from Purdue. Justice Suing, is he a guy? What role do you expect Justice Suing, who's a veteran, played well for you last year, to play this year?
Whether he's at the wing spot. Now he's big. He's 6'7", a big frame. Whether he's at the wing or whether we transition him to kind of the backup point guard or even the point guard spot, we like the ball in his hands. We like his ability to kind of get to places with the ball in his hands. That's kind of why we moved it. We went on that run last year because we had a really unique situation. We had 3 point guards injured at one time. We had a kid who we brought in, great kid from Utah State, who had a heart condition, so he was out for the whole year. Then CJ Walker goes down, and then Jimmy Sotos goes down when we're playing at Rutgers. But at that point, we turn the ball over to Justice and go on a run in the Big Ten. He was a little banged up at the end of the year. His health is probably as important as anything to our team. I think him and Kyle Young and obviously EJ staying healthy.
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe we've gotten this far in the conversation and the name EJ Liddell has not come up. But you've got one of the best players in the country, not just the Big Ten. And he looks different. He looks a little slimmer. I don't know if that's good or bad, because EJ with kind of a big butt was pretty effective. So how do you anticipate utilizing him differently this season from maybe a year ago?
Well, listen, I mean, you call it. He's still got a sizable rear, so that's a good thing. But he's worked really hard at slimming down, and I agree with you. I think he's one of the best players in college basketball. I think he's a guy whose game continues to grow right in front of our eyes. He's always kind of played the forward spot offensively for us. Last year, he had to defend more at the 5. The benefit for him was there weren't many 5s that could guard him. It was a constant mismatch. Now in transitioning him to probably 80% at the 4, he might be guarded by a more mobile, smaller guy. So we got to figure out spots to put him in. He's really shooting it well. He's playing well offensively. I think the challenge for him will be continue to grow in the areas defensively out on the perimeter. He can do it. He's a tremendous kid. He's a really talented kid. And I really believe he just keeps getting better because he's really, really worked at it. But as he knows, Jeff, he went in we knew this time last year, EJ Liddell was going to be a really good player. Now, did we see him being one of the best players in the Big Ten? I think we saw it. We didn't know it would happen so quickly. Now he comes in with a reputation and an intention, and he's going to have to manage that. That can be a challenging thing for kids. And I don't want him to do anything other than just be him, stay in the moment, enjoy, what will in all likelihood be his final year of college.
I think nobody was happier that Joey Brunk arrived than EJ Liddell. You too, probably, because again, you got another big and a big that can. It's so hard in your league because everywhere you look, Hunter Dickinson,
Yeah.
Kofi. I mean, Purdue's got two of them. Zach Edey being a monster. You need a guy like Joey Brunk, and he looked healthier than I've seen him in years.
He looks good. He's slim. You're right. He's all of 6'11". It's not like he's super long, and it's not like he's a great athlete. But in our league, different than a lot of different leagues, in a lot of Power 5 leagues, even you see, particularly in maybe places like the SEC, you see almost a 4 play in the 5 a lot.
Yeah.
And I think for us, you do see some more traditional bigs, and you see that at places like Carolina and some other places. But we needed him. He's not played. Indiana had their NCAA tournament run. What would have been that year with Archie, and during when the pandemic hit. That was a tournament team. He played about 20 minutes on that tournament team. Paired well with Trace. So I'm hoping that he can provide some depth. Whether he'll start or come off the bench, I think he'll be able to provide some solid minutes, but I don't anticipate it necessarily being a 30-minute a night situation.
Your other newcomers, couple guards that should play. I mean, Malachi Branham was a highly touted kid, a local kid. Cedric Russell comes in from the Raging Cajuns back here and put up about 17 a game last year. What do you expect out of those guys? Are they going to be, you just hoping to get good, consistent production coming off the bench from those guys?
Yeah, I think our guard play with Malachi, Michi, who were both freshmen. Well, Michi was here last year. This is his first full year, so he's still a freshman. Malachi, Michi, Cedric, who's an older guy, and then a guy like Jimmy Sotos, who could play some. That's what we've got to figure out. I like those young guys and their upside, their potential, their talent. How quickly can they get to being really good Big Ten guards is the question. But I like the talent that's there with those guys for sure. Malachi at 6'4" and long gives us the flexibility to play him kind of at either wing spot. And Michi's shown the ability to really shoot the ball well and score the ball and play make as well. Cedric's still finding his way a little bit. Just the jump in level, I think, takes you some time to find your way. And he's still trying to figure some things out.
All right. So what's your biggest concern? I know you always have concerns as a coach.
Honestly, whether it was 4 games in 4 days with the Big Ten tournament, just in general, we weren't as healthy as we could have been come March. I think that's really important to us. If we're fortunate enough to play games that matter in March and have a chance, I think we're going to have to stay healthy, number one. Yeah. And then we're going to have to figure out what kind of our backcourt's going to look like. I think Zed Key and Joey, and if we have a small ball lineup, some that we'll use, I think we can have some answers there at the 5 on the interior and the wing spot. But I think health and guard play.
Yeah, I mean, listen, again, Archie Miller has you at number 1. I'm not sure. I don't have you at 1 in the Big Ten. I'm not going to lie to you. I think I have you somewhere.
Ahead of us.
Yeah, I think I have you at 4, which is, your league again is just loaded at the top, like 1 to 7. It's hard to figure out.
How about Michigan State? How about a Tom Izzo team that could win the league? Indiana, I really believe, could win the league. Rutgers could challenge. And we all know people, talking about obviously Michigan, Maryland, Illinois, and Purdue. So, but those, like Penn State's going to be, I think, a real. There's a lot of teams that are going to be really good.
Yeah, Penn State's going to be old, that's for sure. And usually the way to win these days is being old. You guys are fairly old. I mean, right? Yeah, for the most part, other than Malachi.
We are. Malachi, Michi, Zed, and Eugene, who kind of played quite a bit last year. Have some youth there. But yeah, we've the roster. That's why we have a bigger incoming freshman class coming in, because we're going to lose a lot of production after this year. But I'm excited about the young guys in our program, and I'm really excited about where we're at. I think we've been able to establish a level of winning here that is hard to do, and now the challenge is just keep grinding and moving forward.
All right, there you have it. Ohio State head coach Chris Holtman joining us here, and good luck this season, Chris.
Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate it.
Before we move on, let me tell you guys a little bit about our partners over at BetRivers Sportsbook. If you haven't signed up for BetRivers yet, now is the time, because they are offering a $250 match bonus for your first deposit. But what sets them apart is that they require just one playthrough to turn your bonus into cash money. With their Rush Pay instant approval, withdrawing your winnings is safer, it's more secure, and it's more reliable. Now that basketball season is tipping off, get in on the action at betrivers.com today, or by downloading the BetRivers iOS app. You must be 21 years or older. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. And while I got you here, let's talk about the Field of 68 Media Network, where college basketball matters most all year round. This is a digital media and podcast network that we've been building over the course of the last year. We have shows hosted by some of your favorite players covering the program that they love the most. AJ Guyton hosts the House of Hoosier. Eric Devendorf covers Syracuse on the Scorer's Table. Dan Dickow hosts the Gonzaga Bulldog broadcast. We have Florida's Patrick Young and Duke's Andre Dawkins and North Carolina's Shammond Williams and Michigan's Stu Douglas and Illinois' Deion Thomas. The list goes on and on and on. We have more than 30 shows right now. So hit the links below and check them all out. And while you're at it, make sure that you go check out the Field of 12 Media Network, your home for college football.
All right, that was Ohio State head coach Chris Holtman. And now we bring on two other guys to dig deeper into the Ohio State Buckeyes. We bring, of course, none other than former Purdue alum, Robbie Hummel, who I think, will be objective with this one. And Sleeper's rising star, Carter Elliott. And Robbie, let me start with you. This Ohio State team, they're kind of in a tough spot this year in the Big Ten. It's so loaded again at the top. There's not a ton of disparity, I think, from 1 to 7. What's your biggest worry with this Buckeyes team?
Probably, I guess it has to be the point guard position offensively. I don't worry about Jabari Wheeler at all on the defensive end of the floor. In fact, I think he's one of the most fun defensive players to watch in not just the Big Ten, but college basketball. And Chris Holtman has seen it in person. Jabari Wheeler has been a thorn in their side. But I think when you talk about replacing the production that Dwayne Washington gives you as a combo, and also with CJ Walker just being solid. He was a solid Big Ten point guard. He played a million games at Florida State. He played a ton of games at Ohio State. So I think when I'm thinking about what I'm worried about most, it's got to be the production from the guards, because EJ Liddell is going to be a first-team all-league, even an all-American type guy. Justice Suing is a solid player. Kyle Young is solid. They've got a lot of good players, like a lot of really good players. But I think the questions are, is Malachi Branham able to step in as a freshman, or is Cedric Russell, a transfer, able to keep it going from what he did at Louisiana?
Carter, you worried about the point guard spot, or do you feel a little bit better than Robbie does?
No, I'm definitely worried about the point guard spot. I think last year there was one thing that Chris Holtman didn't have to worry about. He did not have to worry about his offense being ran with CJ Walker on the court. That was never an issue. Like, he had to figure out some things. They had defensive struggles last year, but as a backcourt, he never had to worry about CJ Walker running the offense. And he knew Dwayne Washington was going to, put the ball in the basket. Now, a big thing this year is it's really going to have to be on EJ Liddell. And I think he can take that step. I think that when people are mentioning front court players in the Big Ten this year, Liddell's name comes up, but it comes up a little too late for me. Like, he is a Big Ten player of the year caliber player. And I think that Holtman needs to do what he can as a coach this year to maybe bring EJ's skill set and what he can do to the forefront this year. So, you're going to get the defensive production from Wheeler, but you're going to have to find a way to make sure this offense is centered and run best for what EJ's skill set can do, which is very vast. I mean, he shot the ball outside last year, inside. he uses his undersize to his advantage when guarded by bigger players. So I think that Chris needs to figure out what is going to be best for EJ this year, and that will entail make Ohio State, the best team that they can be.
Let me roll it back to the point guard spot for a minute. And what I will say is Chris Holtman has done an incredible job over his head coaching career of not having high-level point guards and still winning at a high level, dating back to Butler and early on at Ohio State. So I think if there's anybody who can figure it out, and it might be Justice Suing, guys. I was there earlier this year. I think they're going to run a lot through Suing. And as you said, Carter, you're going to see a slim down EJ Liddell this year. And is he too slim in a way? I mean, I kind of like the fact that, he had that kind of, he could create space with a little bit of girth, and that helped him, especially as a matchup nightmare offensively. A lot of times you would see him against, 5 men, and no 5 man is going to be able to stop EJ Liddell. Now he'll be able to play in the perimeter even more. And Rob, is he a guy that, again, it's hard because if EJ Liddell is your best player, he can't really create a ton for himself. They had Dwayne Washington and even CJ Walker to some extent last year that could do that. Do you worry about him being your best player without a guy that can kind of make life easier for him?
I don't. I agree with Carter. I think he's a guy that is ready to take the next step. I do worry a little bit about the weight loss. I want him to be in shape, but I agree with you. He put his butt on you and it was over with. So I think that for EJ Liddell and for a lot of the good players in the Big Ten who are bigs, you can't lose track of why you're good. You get this feedback, and I feel like we talk about this all the time. Continue to do what got you here. A lot of times when you want to prove you can really, really shoot threes or you can really, really drive the ball, well, really, you're just proving that you can't do those things because you're not. Oftentimes we see guys that aren't great at that. EJ Liddell can shoot the basketball, but I want him to keep taking good ones. I want him to drive bigger players. I want him to stay on the block. I want him to stay with what's gotten him to this point. But I do think that he's a guy that's going to be a first-team all-league guy. I agree with Carter. I think he could win Big Ten Player of the Year. I really do. And I think that a lot of that will come with who wins the league because there's so many good players. But he's going to be in that conversation. I really don't worry about him in that regard.
And to go off what Robbie said, I think that would be the worst case scenario is that the feedback gets to him kind of at this level. That's the one thing that always bothers me too. Everyone wants to do this feedback and come back to school, but you're playing another year in college basketball. Yeah, do I want to see Hunter Dickinson use his right hand? That's fine, but also no one can stop him with his left hand. People want to see Kofi on the wing or see Kofi making passes. Well, last year, Kofi averaged 19 and 10 and no one could stop him within 10 feet of the end. And it worked for college basketball. So yes, the weight loss is all great, but on a nightly basis, he's going to be banging with dudes that are 265 pounds.
Yeah, it's that balance, right? I mean, the balance between doing what your college team needs you to win and obviously being able to kind of further yourself in your game so that hopefully you can go from a second round pick or maybe a two-way guy to a guy that stays in the league and maybe gets a guaranteed deal, maybe even works his way into the first round. Malachi Branham. So I saw him. He was like a top 35 freshman in the country. Saw him a little bit, and he is super talented. I just wonder how much he's going to give Ohio State. Like you said, Rob, they've got a lot of really good players. Do they have, other than EJ Liddell, do they have any great players? Where does this team stack up right now in the Big Ten? Again, that whatever I know you've got your Purdue Boilermakers at 1. I don't even need to ask you about that. We know that's going to happen. But where do you have Ohio State?
I've got them at 4. And I still believe that I really think they could find a way with as good of a coach as Chris Holtman is to win the Big Ten. And I think when you look at their roster, EJ Liddell's a star. I think Justice Suing can really maybe elevate from what we saw last year. Malachi Branham, I don't know. I mean, it's just so hard to say for freshmen coming in. That's a lot of the Big Ten. There's you look at Michigan State, you look at Michigan, they should be good, but you're counting on a lot of guys that we've never actually seen play either, whether it's at the Big Ten level or in even college basketball. Even
AAU, Rob, even going further than that, remember, we missed this summer being able to watch these kids in person. So I feel like the freshman rankings You can count. They're bad anyway with recruiting analysts doing rankings.
Yeah, with people like you running those rankings.
I never did them. Listen, I never did recruit. You can never put that on me. I never did them because it's a shit show. I mean, seriously, trying to do the recruiting rankings is a complete shit show because, if I saw you one game in the summer and you played like garbage that one game and I'm going to put you outside, it's nobody sees everybody multiple times. You can't.
Right. But getting back to Ohio State, Cedric Russell, this guy's made 266 threes in his college career. He can really shoot the ball. Does that translate to the Big Ten level? For Mike Smith last year, it absolutely did. For others, it's always a crapshoot. Justin Arns, good player. Michi Johnson, great potential. You look at a guy like Eugene Brown or even Joey Brunk, where do the minutes even come from for those guys? There's a lot of good players, but you're right. I would say outside of Liddell and maybe Suing, I'm not sure there's
all league guys.
Right, they're good college basketball players.
And I think that I still have Ohio State right around that 4 range too. I think that people look on the surface level and they see you lose a player like Dwayne Washington and you're losing 17 points a game, probably right around 4 or 5 assists. But statistically, last year when Dwayne Washington was on and off the floor, there wasn't really much difference offensively or defensively. But with EJ Liddell was on the floor, he made more of an impact as far as on the offensive end and the defensive end. Now, you have a lot of undersized bigs on this Ohio State team, like Kyle Young's around 6'8", but he's a do-it-all guy, and he'll probably he's one of those guys that's just like give his all for the program, leave it all out there. Zed Key had some really good minutes last year. If he could stay out of foul trouble, you talk about big body dudes on the post and putting his butt on you. Like, he gets you on that block, gets the butt on you. He can't jump over a phone book, but he's going to score. Like, it is what it is.
Sounds like Hummel. That sounds just like Hummel.
So it's weird pieces, but they got to make it fit. I don't really know what they're going to get out of Brunk, but he is a guy who's 6'11", so you can throw him out there and get some minutes. Yeah,
Carter, he looked healthy, and if he doesn't have to give you a ton, but can Joey Brunk give you 10, 12 quality minutes? And nobody would be happier than EJ Liddell about
especially when they're playing Illinois, Purdue, and Michigan, right? Because of the bodies those guys have.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I think you could put him as high as 4. You could put him as low as 7, and I would have no issue with it. Again, their point guard question marks worry me. They always do, because that's where I start, and I just don't know if they've got a great situation. But again, I've seen Chris Holtman do it with less. So I think he's arguably as underrated a coach as there is in the country. He'll find a way to figure it out. But ultimately, to be able to go deep in the tournament, I think you need a really good point guard situation. I don't know if they have that. I think they can be, top 4 or 5 of the Big Ten. And that's saying a lot this year. Let's face it. Again, Purdue's going to be loaded. Illinois got an elite level big and an elite level or close to it point guard. I know Rob doesn't want to hear that.
No,
until he proves he can shoot the ball, that's fine. And I said close to elite level. He's elite.
You didn't want to say close to elite level, though. You were about to just.
I was, and then I looked at you. Then I looked at you and I said, I can't, because then he's going to kill me. But again, that next tier that we're talking about, okay, even Maryland. When you look at Ohio State compared to Maryland, Maryland's probably got more overall talent and less questions, and certainly at the point guard spot.
I have huge questions with their bench. Their bench with Maryland's bench.
Yeah, I like it.
Really?
Yeah, I actually like it. I think they can go 9 deep. I do.
With Ian Martinez and
Graham, and they got some guys. I actually think they're better than people think in terms of their depth. Watching them. Yeah, in person, I was impressed with their depth.
Graham's a guy that can make a big jump just because of the fact that he got to campus, in January or December, and it's so hard. But he can shoot. He's got a good size. Yeah.
Right. So I don't know. Again, I generally when it comes down to these, you then look at when there's not a lot of disparity. You look at coaches. Like, that's how I kind of look at it. And Holtman's really good, but you're going to compare him to Tom Izzo, who's pretty good last I checked. So I don't know how you figure this whole thing out, but I have faith in Holtman to figure it out. obviously last year they did an unbelievable job in the regular season and then bowed out in the first round of the NCAA tournament to Oral Roberts. I don't see that happening again, not with a guy like Liddell. I do think Liddell is a potential first-team All-American type of player. Like if he doesn't average 18-8, I'd be surprised this year. Wouldn't you guys?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's the baseline for him. I think it's going to be, pretty well above 20, honestly. And, the rebounds are going to be there. But like you pointed out, it's going to be Holtman having to also, who's going to be that guy who's going to step up when everyone's game planning for Liddell. So like Robbie mentioned earlier, a guy like Justice Suing, he has the profile. He's shown the ability to score at times. He needs to be that guy that steps up. Maybe it's somebody else, but I think everyone's looking at Justice Suing to be that guy that when maybe EJ is having an off night or the defense is all focused on EJ, he can step up and take off some of that scoring load. And also, I think he's an underrated playmaker. I've seen flashes of it, so I think he can do it. So that'll be big this year also to see who's going to step up besides EJ.
They need him. I mean, Rob,
Yeah.
that's the thing is like, I don't know if Michi's ready for that. And he's more of a scorer. So would you run more through Suing, or like, what would your thoughts be coming into the year at that point guard spot, how you play?
Yeah, I think you probably do start with Justice Suing, and you see how Jabari Wheeler kind of comes along. You see how Michi Johnson has kind of progressed here. The one thing I will say is that Ohio State can put a roster of guys out there that can really shoot the basketball around EJ Liddell. Justin Arns is a flamethrower. Cedric Russell, big reputation as a shooter. Seth Towns, those guys can shoot. Now, his health is certainly always, unfortunately, a question mark. At times, he'd go in the game last year and you'd be like,
He'd make big shots.
8 points, just racking them off. Like he's got good size. He can score it. We also haven't talked about my man from Bucknell.
Sotos.
Yeah, Jimmy Sotos. I mean, he's
TikTok legend
as well. Yeah, exactly. So they've got a lot of pieces that they really do. But I think to start the year, you should run your offense through Suing and Liddell.
Yeah, I think they will. And I think this is, again, listen, it's an Ohio State team and program that's become relevant every year. And when Thad Matta left, it started to take a downturn. Let's face it. Thad, his health kind of hit him. He wasn't recruiting at the same level or even close to it. They had started to fall off a little bit. And Chris Holtman's done an incredible job kind of keeping, this program that's obviously more about football. We know that. They don't have the same, backing from a basketball standpoint. But I almost think that fits Chris Holtman well. I mean, Carter, you think Chris Holtman's long for Ohio State? I mean, I don't know where else he goes. He's from Lexington, just so you know. He's from just outside of Lexington, Kentucky. So I could see that being if Calipari ever leaves. But where else does Chris Holtman go from here?
To be honest, I can't really picture him anywhere else from this. And I think that he is, obviously I don't know him, but I think that he is focused on finally getting over that hump and getting past that first weekend. I think he has the talent. Obviously he's a great coach, so he can do it. There's no really questions there. I think it's time for him just to actually get over that hump with Ohio State, and I think he can do it.
Robbie?
I agree. I know you want to beat the Chris Holtman to Kentucky drum as hard as ever.
Oh, no.
I've heard you say this a million times. I just don't, Ohio State is a great program, but it flies under the radar because football is so dominant there. But even, when they go to the Big Ten tournament or they're in the Sweet 16 and the Final Four, they travel. Yeah. Their fan base still supports them in a way, maybe not during the season at times. I know I played a game there. We were both in the top 10. They were selling 2-for-1 tickets. That's not happening at many Big Ten schools in the country, especially when Evan Turner's on your team. But at the same time, they've always been good, especially since that. And I don't see why you leave.
All right, there you have it. Ohio State Buckeyes, somewhere in that 4 to 5 range, I think is probably what most people are going to pick them. Robbie Hummel, Carter Elliott, thanks for joining us. And make sure you follow all of our content, Field of 68, all the season previews, preseason previews, everything like that. And you might even get to watch Robbie Hummel jump at some point. See that?